What weird flex you proud of? I have a sock drawer that's 72 of the same exact sock. I never have to fold them or dig around to make a matching pair. In the 1980s, there used to be a small ad every week in the back pages of the UK actors magazine, The Stage, for a guy called Harryburgliss. It was just his silhouette, his name, his agent's phone number, and the caption, International Man of Mystery. The simple genius of it was so giddying that I felt compelled to steal it when I wrote the program notes for one of the performers in a student comedy show I directed. Another performer in that show was a guy called Neil Malarkey, who went on to form a double act with a young Canadian comedian called Mike Myers. He and Mike both loved that phrase, but neither of them knew where I'd got it from, so Mike just stole it again. Decades later, I got in touch with Harryburgliss, then aged 90, via his son, and apologized for nicking it. He got back to say he was delighted to find out how Mike Myers had come by that phrase, and told me I'm forgiven. He's still alive today, and nearly 100 years old. Burgliss was a truly great magician, a huge star of British TV in the 50s and 60s, and deserves acknowledgement for that brilliant strapline. I'm also sheepishly proud of my part in the chain of theft that led to Austin Powers. I have hugged a penguin. I got spit on by a walrus once. Another weird flex. I got spit on by a bear. Went to the dentist for the first time in 5 years last week for a cleaning checkup. No cavities. Started going again about 3 years ago after not going for 15, 20 years, turning 40 next month. I've never had a cavity. I bought the 2 first books of A Song of Ice and Fire from a dude in 1999 I met on Usenet. Couldn't find them in a bookstore. He said he had cases of them in his basement, and if I wanted them autographed, it was GRRM himself, and way before they got popular. GRRM procrastinating? Story checks out. Hey, ChatGPT, write The Winds of Winter. I've planted over 2 million trees. This has to be part of your job, right? That's 180 trees per day for 3 decades. It is a job. More like 2,000 to 5,000 trees a day while working from May to August. Mostly reforestation, some remediation work after fires. I can write with either hand. Not such an impressive skill, but when my colleague remarked that my handwriting is beautiful, despite using my dominant right hand to also type at the same time, it made me blush. It was indeed a very beautiful and calligraphic handwriting. I built and installed a bookshelf doorway with a hidden door handle myself. It leads into a room dedicated only to Dungeons and Dragons. Childhood dream achieved. I still dream of having a secret room. One day. I got a pity pat from Obama. This was ages ago when he was still just a senator from Illinois. I got a job at a local radio station as a reporter for news in the area. Obama was speaking at a community college in our area, and I was told to listen to his address and ask relevant questions afterwards. I had never done that before, or since, and I barely listened, and at the end he met with the press, which was me and a local newspaper guy. After he finished with the other guy, he looks at me and says, "What can I do for you?" My mind went totally blank, and I just stood there staring at him. This went on for a little too long, and eventually he reaches out a hand, pats me gently on the shoulder and goes, "It's okay," and then walked off. Lowell, I am fucking dying. This is amazing. I am just reading those quotes in his voice. Thank you for this. I have an uncanny knack for remembering people, even people that I see very briefly. For example, I once saw a guy on the escalator in Toronto and I said, "Hey, when you move here from Vienna?" He was flabbergasted. I had walked past him on the street once while visiting there, and 5 years later I recognized him. I have an uncanny knack not to recognize my close workmates if they are not at work. I'll see someone at the store and think they look familiar only to realize I sit within 10 feet of them at work. How am I expected to keep track of you when you're not in your normal spot, Lowell? Life mystery possibly solved. When I was a kid, a teenager stopped me and said, "Hey, you were at the monster truck rally last year." I had no idea who this person was, and just denied it because I thought he thought I was someone else. He said, "No, I remember you were there with your dad and you were wearing an ALF for President shirt." I should mention that I lived in a metro area of 2 million people, and this truck rally was in a 20,000 person arena that was 30 minutes away from where I lived. I was at that event with my dad, and while I do not remember what I wore to it, I was the proud owner of an ALF for President t-shirt, so it would have been a possible wardrobe choice that night. I was never able to understand how he remembered me or those other details, especially because neither my dad nor I had any significant conversations with anyone there. I bet that guy was one of these types of people. Wow. I have finished 3 full tubes of Chapstick in my life. Not lost or missing. Finished to the end. Okay. I am not taking this win from you. Amazing. But you reminded me of a quirk of my friend. She's obsessed with a very specific flavor of a chapstick brand popular back in high school. She needed this stuff all day. Had it on her, in her car, in her purse, and one bedside at all times. The company ended the flavor. She called the head office and convinced them how important this stuff was. They agreed to sell her a literal pallet of the stuff. Boxes and boxes. I really need to message her and ask how her stash is doing. God, what happens when that runs out? I don't think that company exists anymore. I made a meme on a small subreddit, and a couple hours later my buddy sent me my own meme, not knowing I made it. I am a hobbyist photographer. Someone used my photo for the background and put an inspirational quote over it. My friend from Berlin, I'm in the US, sent me the inspirational quote photo, and I recognized my picture. My wife didn't believe me for several weeks. I showed her both side by side. Every leaf and twig was in the exact same position. She finally agreed. I'm still not sure she believes me. It's just such a great coincidence. When I was in law school, I prepped a course outline for first-year property law that was really good. I shared it with one person and asked him not to share. About a week later, I start hearing about this awesome outline everyone had, and how well it was written and covered all the necessary material. Ask around and finally get my hands on it. It was my fucking outline. Called my buddy out on it, and he tried to say he didn't share it. He folded when I told him he was the only person I shared it with. In his defense, it was a damn good outline. I ended up getting the highest score in that class that the professor ever gave. My outline got in his hands, and he made it an official part of his course syllabus. 20 years later, I specialize in real property law and still stay in touch with that professor, Dr. Jerry Beyer at Texas Tech Law School. Best damn law school professor I ever had. Gossip in the office that comes to me never goes further. Do you kill everyone that knows it, or? Guessing about where he hid the bodies is considered gossip. Rest in peace, friend. I'm a psychiatric nurse, and I saved a man's life when he collapsed outside my apartment. It was during the height of COVID. I could hear people shouting, and I looked out the window to the scene of a man face down on the road, and people standing around him in a panic. I shoved my PPE equipment on, I keep some at home for cleaning, and ran downstairs in my pajamas, no socks or shoes on. He wasn't breathing, and had a massive cut on his head so deep you could see his skull. Nobody knew how long he was in cardiac arrest for. I managed to get his heart going again by myself. I had so much adrenaline going, and when the paramedics came, I gave them the full handover as they took him away. The paramedics took my details in case the hospital wanted to contact me. A week later, I got a phone call from the man and his wife to say thank you for saving his life, and if I ever needed anything, they would help me. After he went away in the ambulance and the adrenaline wore off, I cried my eyes out, praying he would be okay. I still think about him regularly and feel very proud of myself. Right now I hold the record at my local barcade for Street Fighter 2. 1,010,000. I also get free beer because of it. It all happened because I was going back and forth with this guy that I haven't met yet on who can get the high score on their board. He held the record at 762,000, and then I beat it with 788,000. He's been trying to beat it ever since I posted that score, and the closest he got was 770,000. When I seen that score posted on the game itself, I had about 6 beers in me, and I walked over there and dropped the million by getting perfect on most of the bosses, and a handful of perfects on the regular players. He's never gonna touch that shit now. Hold this.